Okay, if you have a rifle that's super frustrating to deal with, it might be a rigidity issue. Now, the first thing I would always check is make sure that you have your sights properly stabilized, which we talk about in part one of this video series. The next thing that you got to do is check your action screw. That is the second most common problem when trying to diagnose a rifle's accuracy as far as rigidity is concerned. Now, in today's test, we're going to be showing you two different rifles. One rifle that I know is rigid and another rifle that I know has a rigidity issue in order to try to show you how to best try to diagnose this issue. Again, it's going to be super hard to diagnose and there's no guarantee that your rifle is not rigid, unfortunately. Just because we can't guarantee that your rifle's not rigid doesn't mean that there aren't some indicators that can give us some clues. So let's take a look and see what we can do. But first things first, what is rifle rigidity?
Now, rifle rigidity is simply how much does the rifle vibrate when a rifle is fired, and it's also how consistent does that rifle vibrate when it's fired.
Now that we know what rifle rigidity is, let's take a look at my particular group and try to figure out what's going on here. Now, it took me over a year of diagnosing my rifle to figure out that my rifle was drooping. As you can see, the first shot shoots high. And then the group starts to form at about 1.25 inches MOA, which is honestly not that bad. But if you combine the entire group together, you're looking at about 2.5 MOA. That's about double the size of what the group could be if the first shot was landing inside the group. Why is this happening? Well, I have a thin barrel. I'm shooting a 30-06, which is a fairly powerful round, and I'm shooting it in the hot desert heat. This leads to some accuracy issues, and it's something that I would probably have to change the barrel out on, the stock on, or go to a gunsmith in order to figure out. Now you might be asking the question, why is the rifle barrel drooping? And that's because it was built that way. And you might be asking, well, why was it built that way? And in order to answer that question,
let's look at the past and how rifles used to be made to understand why modern rifles are built the way that they are built. In this video series, we are fixing the accuracy issues on this Remington Model 721. Now, you're going to see some of the results of that of our testing in this video here, showing the amazing accuracy that we are getting out of this rifle. But it doesn't mean that it will always be this accurate for forever because of a couple flaws in the system. You see, this scope here is attached to a receiver, and that receiver is attached to the rest of the gun. So how are things attached to this receiver? That's the important question. Well, the barrel is screwed into this receiver. The barrel is attached to this stock with a support, and this action is attached to the stock with an action screw. This creates a nice, lovely, and very stable triangle. But if you interrupt that triangle, or if you use ammo that is either too powerful or not powerful enough, you can create harmonic issues in the barrel, and you can also create hinging, which is when one area of a triangle is broken and it is no longer a triangle anymore, right? And so that creates a lot of wobbling in the system. So there's a couple common creations for that problem. The most popular problem is probably the action screw being loose, or the action screw being over tightened and breaking some of the components in the rifle. So making sure that you're using a torque wrench or a torque screwdriver and torquing it to the proper amount of torque that the manufacturer recommends can solve that issue. Another issue with this gun, which is fixable, is the front support on this barrel can wear out or break. And if that happens, a common solution is to free float the barrel to eliminate that contact point. But remember, all we've done in the triangle is just eliminate a contact point. Now we've created a hinge. How does that make the rifle more accurate? Well, what we do is we can do what's called glass spinning the rifle, and that essentially marries the receiver and the stock together to create one amazing contact point. So you essentially go from this open triangle that was broken, and then now you're filling in that triangle with some kind of a compound. And that compound creates an amazing and rigid structure, which actually makes the gun more accurate than it was before.
So now we're going to test these two rifles side by side to prove to you that marketing hype and the fact that a free-floated barrel is always more accurate than a non-free-floated barrel is just simply not the case. If there are other issues with the rifle, a free-floated barrel is not going to be the magic end-all be-all for rifle accuracy. So what we've got here is the exact same shooter with the exact same process for reloading ammo, choosing the exact same shooting conditions with the exact same scope mounting system. So we have eliminated the other three variables as much as humanly possible in order to make sure that this test is as fair as I can make it. And you've already seen the group on the screen of my rifle that I think has some barrel drooping. So here what I'm about to do is I'm going to show my other group. As you can see, the group that's performed by me shooting the other rifle is more than sufficient. This is about a 3/4 MOA group, and so it just proves that the shooter, the ammo reloading technique, and the sight mounting technique can produce good results. Now, this is not conclusive evidence, it's just suggestive evidence that there could be and is likely an issue with the other rifle's rigidity. You should be doing tests with other people's rifles. You should have other people shooting your rifle to eliminate as many variables as possible before permanently altering any rifle.
Let's talk about why modern hunting rifles are simply going to be less accurate if you're buying a budget rifle. And that's because buyers will not buy a rifle anymore unless the barrel is free floating. It is a necessary feature of a rifle, no matter how horribly the action is attached to the receiver. As long as that barrel is free floating, buyers will buy it, leading to a race to the bottom on pricing for a lot of these gun manufacturers. Now, that doesn't mean that these gun manufacturers are completely evil. They are trying to solve this problem as much as possible while still making the gun affordable. And so what a lot of guns companies have done is they've created this V shape inside the stock. And then they create a kind of like a wedge shape inside the receiver, and they wedge that receiver into the stock with an action screw. And that kind of creates that triangle that we were talking about earlier with the older model Remington 721. However, it's a much smaller triangle. And who knows how many contact points are on that receiver in order for it to be stable. And because these parts are interchangeable, who knows that your receiver is interacting with your stock well. You could just happen to have a receiver in a stock that just don't line up the way that they should be. And I'm not saying they are or they aren't. I'm just saying what could or couldn't be, right? So you can have issues with your receiver being attached to your stock. So consider buying a different stock, seeing if that works if you're having issues with your gun. Another thing is barrel selection. Now, this was my mistake. I was kind of new to buying rifles. I had always used rifles that were either handed down, so that I already knew how accurate they are when I was in possession of those rifles. I had never picked out a rifle for myself. And I had picked out a 30-06 because I wanted a very capable caliber that was also not overbearing for things like deer and antelope. But I got a thinner barrel in order to be able to reduce weight. And a lot of other hunters have done the same. I'm not the only person who's made this mistake along the years. But 30-06 is just big enough a caliber to heat up this barrel incredibly quickly, causing barrel droop and accuracy issues with this gun. The first round will shoot high, and the second and third and fourth rounds will all sit inside the same nice tight little group, exactly where I zeroed the rifle in at. So understand that this rifle is not a horrible choice, but it does have some accuracy issues because of some mistakes that I made when purchasing this rifle. Likely, I am going to try changing out this barrel and seeing if that makes a difference. And if that doesn't work, I will consider changing out the stock. But I'm not there quite yet. Another issue with accuracy on this gun is the materials. It has a very squishy rubber butt pad, which creates a lot of comfort, but it does not necessarily create more rigidity or more accuracy. This old hunting rifle has a metal butt pad. It's not necessarily the most comfortable, but dang it, look at the results in the comparison on the screen right here.
Now, understand just because we only show one test on camera doesn't mean we've only done one test. Remember, I've owned these rifles over years, and so it will most likely take you a long time in order to solve a true rifle rigidity issue. Or I say long time, it depends on how often you shoot this rifle. If you shoot it every day, hopefully you can figure it out quite quickly. Now, if you have an old rifle and it's shooting accurately, this test is only designed to prove to you that an old rifle that's not free floated, that's shooting accurately, has no reason to be modified. Keep it the way it is until or if something goes wrong one day and it is damaged. If it's damaged and you got to take it to a gunsmith to fix it, then go ahead, glass bed and free float your barrel. Now, let's talk about modern rifles. Now, I haven't fixed the accuracy issues on my modern rifle yet, but I kind of have a really good idea on the next steps to take. So I'm going to share them with you and take them with a grain of salt because I have not personally tested this. However, I do have enough data with some other rifles that are in my arsenal in order to be able to share with you why I've come up with these conclusions. Okay, conclusion number one. My barrel is too thin for the amount of bullet and the speed of the bullet that I plan to shoot out of it. And essentially what that means is it's too thin for a 30-06. And I've come to this conclusion because that 270 that you are seeing and the group on that 270 to the right is shot through a significantly thicker, heavier barrel. Now that doesn't mean that you have to have a heavier barrel. Obviously now we have carbon wrapped barrels, which are probably produced for a reason. It's probably to solve this barrel droop problem that we've come up with modern rifles, trying to create as lightweight of a rifle as we possibly can and then sending Magnum cartridges down range. So consider either upgrading your barrel by carbon wrapping it or getting a carbon wrapped barrel, or just simply getting a thicker, heavier barrel like what we used to do in the old days. Okay, after that, consider your recoil management system. Consider the fact that the bullet is moving through the barrel and it is causing some accuracy issues if your gun is moving. So if you have a nice squishy butt pad, you can put on a firmer butt pad. Or if you don't want to do that, put on a muzzle brake to reduce the movement of the muzzle as the bullet goes down the barrel. Or if you don't want to do a muzzle brake, you can also do a suppressor. I would recommend, though, if you're going to do a suppressor, try using a shorter barrel instead of a longer barrel. You'll probably get much better results. Not just in accuracy, but I'm talking about convenience, because the small amount of velocity that you'll get from a longer barrel is not going to overcome the amount of inconvenience of hitting brush when you're out in the wilderness. Okay. Next thing to consider is if your barrel and recoil management system are up to date on your rifle, because maybe you don't have the same issue that I have. Maybe you do not have barrel drooping, and that's why you're watching this video, and I want to give you an answer right now. The answer is you might have an issue with the contact point between your stock and your receiver, and it might not be your action screw's torque. There might be damage, there might be a manufacturer defect. So consider taking it into a gunsmith to see if they can determine that, or just simply buy a different stock. At the end of the day, sometimes you just get a lemon and you have to find a few different configurations of a rifle in order to get something that fires accurately. Last thing that I'll leave you with is just understand, these modern rifles are built on a budget, okay? They are built to be mass produced. So if your rifle is not getting as much accuracy as you want, either increase your budget or lower your expectations. If you expect to shoot 500 yards with a rifle that costs underneath $1,000, you are sorely mistaken that rifle is going to be able to do that in a Magnum caliber and underneath the 8-pound mark. Now, if your rifle's more than 8 pounds, if the caliber is smaller than .308, you might be able to shoot accurately out to 500 yards, but increase the caliber to a magnum caliber or decrease the weight below 8 pounds, and that's where you're going to start running into some issues. So I hope this video helped. Hopefully it's going to help you diagnose some issues. And lastly, what I really want is I want you focused on the most important factor, which is your ammunition. At the end of the day, your shooting fundamentals should not be the issue. You should have good shooting fundamentals. And I'm not trying to put anybody down. What I'm saying is you should be working on your shooting fundamentals so that way it's not a factor anymore. As you can see in this test, my shooting fundamentals were not a factor. I hope that your sight stability is not a factor. I hope that you watch part 1 of this video series and that you do not have sights that are wobbly or sights that are not plumb to your rifle or sights that will get knocked loose one day because you did not properly attach them. I hope that you do not have rifle stability issues. If you do, I'm sorry. It's a pain in the ass to deal with. Okay, with that being said, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and comment down below. What do you think of this video, and what are some other questions that you have? We try to answer as many comments down below, and if we can't answer them, sometimes they just become ideas for a future video and they'll get answered in video format. Take care and see you guys next time.